Good evening. I'd like to make a quick video about grading companies. Currently there are two key grading companies, obviously CGC being what many believe to be the golden standard of grading, and then of course PGX, which is probably their biggest competitor. There's a lot of controversy over which particular source is the best, and I've heard a lot of people say, oh, I won't even buy PGX books, or they sell for less, or there's just all sorts of controversy over issues they've had in the past. And then I've heard some people that don't like grading at all. They don't like some of the things about CGC. So obviously I'm a pretty fact-driven guy, so I wanted to kind of do some research to understand what has transpired over the last several years with these companies, some of the complaints that were lodged, some of the situations that occurred that might have led people to believe PGX was not as good of a company, or to go against grading altogether. Obviously there are some basic things such as mummifying of the books. The comics are made to read, and it's just a way to get more money out of the books, and that's probably a true statement. Obviously for me, I do collect. I enjoy collecting, but I do it also for investment purposes, and I want to do whatever makes the book the most valuable. But obviously I'm not selling any right now because I do enjoy collecting. But just a couple key things I'd like to go over first and foremost. Obviously starting with just the basic complaints of both companies. So I did some reading up and looked at several articles, and obviously CGC, there have been complaints about grading in general. Some people think they're inconsistent. Some people think that there's inconsistencies between the old label versus the new, and kind of as the grading has evolved, they become a little looser. Some people say that they're harder on lower grade comics. There's all sorts of different things that you hear. Some people just don't like dealing with them. They think they're overpriced and whatnot. They also recently, well, I don't know how recent this was, but I read that they had bought Classics Incorporated, and that is an actual restoration house. So some people believe that there's a controversy there, that if they could try to promote pressing or restoration, obviously because they own that company now, and they may even be more susceptible to grading those books higher because they were restored through their company. Now, whether that happens or not is, there's no facts behind that. The only thing that we know is that they bought the company. Everything else is pretty much speculation, but there is that potential, and I guess that's what they wanted to convey there. With PGX, obviously there have been some challenges. Inconsistency has been called out as one. Some people actually say PGX is a little more critical on grading. Some people say they're not. Some people say they're a little easier on lower grade books than CGC. And again, I don't have any actual data to substantiate that. These are just claims. Another thing that has been claimed is that they swap books. They take a lesser grade from their collection and swap it out with the customers. I will say, for factual, is that I have sent many books in, and I've got back the same books because I know my books, and they've come back fast. They've come back correct. So I can't validate that claim either based on my personal experiences. Restoration, I know some years back there was a concern with this Terrence Letter guy, a love story between PGX and Terrence Letter, where there were some books that were being graded high and then turned out to be later sent to CGC and found to be restored. Again, these are things that were brought up on a website. There may be some facts to them. I know that according to the websites and according to the latest correspondence I've seen, I've not seen any further complaints about that, and that's been some 10 years ago. So a lot of people tend to bring up that old story and try to use it against PGX. Granted, if they were affected by it, I can see why they have distaste, but I guess I'm struggling at this point, 10 years or so later. That's really kind of moot. They've added several things, security devices in their holders. They have new checks for restorations and so forth. So whether or not those claims are still valid is also not quite validated at this point. And of course, aside from just the complaints about both companies, then there's of course the costs. So just using facts, right? I know that PGX has basically like 4 services. They have Modern, they have the Modern Express, they have the Standard and Standard Express, and of course your overnights and so forth. But let's just focus on the basics. So the Modern pricing is $13, and that's about a 20-day turnaround. I know they're on time for those. They're usually 16 days. They have a Modern Express, which is $5 extra, so it's $18, and that's about an 8-day turnaround. I don't know what I'm assuming they're on time, but I really don't know. But it's an 8-day turnaround. There's no fair market value. There's no difference in price based upon value or fair market value, which is nice. Then they have the Standard and the Standard Express. Standard is going to be your Silver Age and back. And that starts at $20. That's a 20-day turnaround. I know, again, they're about 16 days right now. And then they have the Express, which is $25, and that's an 8-day turnaround. And I'm not sure where they are on that, if they're on time or what. CGC, on the other hand, has several tiers of grading. So they have their Standard Modern service, which is $18. Now that is a max fair market value of $200, and that is a 20-day turnaround. Right now, I believe they're at 36-day turnaround, according to their website. They also have a Modern Fast Track, I believe they call it. That's $28, and it's a max value of $200 with a 10-day turnaround. And I think they're running around 18 according to their website. They also have an Economy and an Economy Fast Track, and I believe there's a minimum 15 book requirement to utilize this service. $35 per book with a max value of $300. That's 40-day turnaround, and currently it's at 59 days according to their website. And then there's the Fast Track, which is $45. That's a max value of $300. With a 20-day turnaround, they're currently at 25 days. And then they have a Standard and Express service. The Standard service is $60 per book with a max value of $1,000. And that's a 15-day turnaround. They're on time according to their site. And then they have an Express service, which is $95, and that's a $3,000 max value, 5-day turnaround, on time according to their site. They also have a 5-day handling fee per invoice, and to my knowledge, they require you to either go through their service, like you have to actually sign up for a membership or something on their site, or work through a third party, such as a comic shop or someone who's already affiliated with them and have signed up. And typically they'll charge you like a $5 handling fee as well. So it is a bit more challenging. PGX is a little cheaper and it's easier to get in. Again, I'm trying not to be biased here. I'm just trying to be fact-based. So that's basically the difference in the costs. And then also, what I wanted to do too is actually look at a couple of books in the same grade between the two companies and just see roughly what differences there are, if any. I think it would be interesting. I've not actually done this yet. I figure, again, I don't want to be biased, so I wanted to show you exactly what it is that we're dealing with. So here's a Walking Dead number 10, 9.8 PGX. I recently had this submitted, and as you can see, it's a good good book. It's a near mint book. There's no question about it. Corners are nice and clean. Sharp corners, no creasing, no dents. This is a very nice copy of this book. Let's look at the back here. So when I got this back, I was clearly happy with what they graded it. I felt like they graded it fairly, and according to the shape of the book. In fact, I was kind of curious why I didn't get even a higher grade, like a 9.9, but there may be unforeseen things inside that I'm not aware of, so I just leave it to the experts on that. And then I have a 9.8 Walking Dead number 10 from CGC. We can take a look at that. So, it's still a very nice looking book. Clean corners, clean edges, no dents, no creasing. It's a very nice looking book. I guess the only thing I'm seeing is maybe a little ding on that corner, but I'm sure that falls within the criteria for a 9.8. Same thing kind of there. Yeah, that corner's a little dinged actually. Again, I'm sure it falls within the criteria. So basically that was one book. I think that was a good example. And then the next one is a Walking Dead 92 that I'd like to share with you here. So this is my CGC, my PGX copy 9.6. I just recently had this submitted. And as you see, it's also a really clean book. I actually thought this was going to get a 9.8, and I'm not sure why PGX knocked it down. Maybe this is that corner. I'm not really sure. But I was a little disappointed that it didn't get a higher grade. I was hoping it would get a 9.8. But, you know, again, I have to trust that these guys are using a specific criteria. So there's some staining there that may have also impacted it. So, makes sense, I guess. And then another thing to mention is they do use the same criterion as far as their grading scale, and the criteria for that scale, to my knowledge, is pretty much identical between the two companies. They have similar point systems, and obviously grading is subjective. So, you know, you're dealing with humans that are looking at a book, and everybody has their own views on things and how significant it is. So that's important to understand when you're getting something graded. They do have a tiered system. I believe it's they have 3 people look at it. You have a master grader and a couple other guys, so that they compare notes to make sure that they're all in agreement with one another. But you know, it's a pretty good process. And so here's another 9.6 from some CGC, and as you can see, it has a pretty insignificant corner ding there, but that's probably bringing it down a little bit. That's a pretty good ding there. But overall, it's a nice book, right? I mean, it's clean, no dents, dings, creases. So I guess what I'm trying to point out here, and again, I haven't looked at these up until now, is from what I'm seeing here, they're pretty comparable in their grading techniques. In fact, on that number 10, I would say maybe the PGX looked a little better. You know, obviously, you may think differently, but when I looked at that corner there, if I were buying one, I'd want the PGX one myself. But in any case, I did want to highlight that and just kind of show how the two grade with an identical book, an identical grade, and how comparable they are. They're very comparable. I can't stress enough, though, about the fact that it is subjective. But I guess one of the key reasons I made this video, aside from just hearing all this controversy and wanting to be able to kind of find something tangible to be able to use and say, okay, this is not a company I want to use, or, you know, they need to make sure they correct whatever the issue is. I've not found much on either company, at least as of late. And bottom line is, we certainly don't want to have a single company out there, because not that, if assuming PGX did go out of business, I mean, if CGC monopolized the market, how hard would it be, you know, to even get a book graded, and who knows at what cost? So having competition in the market and the industry is absolutely imperative, whoever it may be, whether it's PGX or whether it's you know, this new company I hear may be coming out that's branching away from CGC. I think one of their key graders is branching off his own grading source, which may be good for everybody. But bottom line is, I don't like to see people slandered or extorted either way when it comes to this stuff, you know. And again, I just want to make sure that what I'm doing is fact-based and not off of somebody raving on a forum about how bad the company is when they may not even have any basis for doing so. I've obviously had very good experiences with both companies. I have no complaints from either. I think they're both fair. I think they both do a great job. And I have books, obviously, from both sources, as you see here. So I want both of them to be successful for my sake and theirs. But you know, I just want to be careful about how, you know, listening to the slander out there about these companies. So anyway, I just wanted to share. Obviously, these are my opinions. I tried again not to be biased here, but just to share the facts with you. I'd love to hear your feedback. Feel free to share. Thanks.